Gas up the Jeep, it's good to be free. Load up the pans and fishing poles. The highway is long, the wheels turning round. Pack up the cook stove and the bowls. Arlo and I, we hit the open road. Arlo and I are on the road.
Hey everybody, Arlo and I are out and about again today, and we're out in the woods up here on the Mogollon Rim, and I thought I would come out and see if I could find some mushrooms. Now, as you've noticed in a couple of the previous videos, we've had a really dry summer, so mushroom season has really pretty much been non-existent so far. But we did have some rains a couple of weeks ago, and we are starting to see, you know, some mushrooms kind of popping up here and there. There's been lots of slippery jacks. I've seen some oyster mushrooms, some Amanita muscarius popping up here and there. And you know, I'm hoping that maybe I'll find some boletes, maybe some porcinis or something like that. So I'm heading out to the woods today, Arlo and I, and we're going to see what we can find. Now my plan is, you know, I don't expect to find a whole ton of mushrooms. That I'm thinking that if I can find a little bit here, a little bit there, if I can find like 3 or 4 different types of mushrooms, that maybe I could go home and I could make some nice cream of mushroom soup. So that's what I think that I'm going to be doing today. Just trying to see what I can find, what edible mushrooms that I can find, and we'll take them back and make some really delicious soup. So anyway, let's see what we can find. Alright, so here we are with our first mushrooms, and not surprisingly, there's some slippery jacks here. I'm on the side of the road, so these are kind of dusty and dirty. I typically don't like to pick them right off the side of the road, but these look kind of nice. You can see right there, this is the Sweetless caibabensis. It's kind of our local slippery jack, most common one that I find up here anyway. And let's see, so you can identify this mushroom. They kind of grow in these sort of like, they grow singly, but they also kind of grow kind of in like these little clumps and stuff kind of here along the road like this. But you can identify them also by this kind of bright yellow color on the underside. You can see that yellow kind of pore surface, which tends to be a little bit like more open pores, a little spongier than you would say like you would find like in a king bolete mushroom. And the stem is usually well, it's speckled, kind of like that. I don't know if you can see that. That's kind of the speckled on there on the stem, and it also has kind of like a kind of a thin stem like that. And then in the rain, and when they're fresh, they're very sticky and slimy, which of course is why they're called slippery jack mushrooms. These, it's been dry here for several days, so these are really dry and dusty. But I'm going to collect a few of these for our mushroom soup. You know, like I said, they're not my favorite mushroom in the world. They do kind of have a strange texture, but they do have a great flavor. And a lot of times what people will do is they'll take these and they'll dry them out and then grind them into a powder and use them kind of like as a seasoning mix or as a flavoring for soups and stews, gravies, things like that. It works really well for that because they do have a beautiful mushroom flavor, but as a mushroom to eat by itself, they don't have like the most pleasant texture to them. You can see as the sun's coming out how bright and yellow these are. You know, as I picked that one up, I accidentally peeled off some of this top layer of this cap, and a lot of times a lot of people will do that. They'll peel off this layer off of the cap, and that'll help reduce that sliminess quite a bit. I might even do that for these mushrooms when I get back to the kitchen. are. We found our second mushroom of the day. What we have here, let's see. This beautiful mushroom is the Caesar's Amanita. Another tasty and very common mushroom out here. Some years they're just all over the place and they get really huge. When you harvest mushrooms, it's really important that you kind of lift them up from the bottom. Don't just cut them off, so you can see the structures on the bottom. And this is an Amanita. You can tell it has this sort of vulva, sort of egg-like structure which the mushroom emerges from. Now the Caesar's Amanita is really easy to identify. It has this bright yellow cap. Sometimes it's more of a whitish color when it's been kind of sun bleached out, but when they're fresh like this, they have a bright golden and or almost orange. Sometimes they're even a dark orange color. And then if you look underneath, actually I'm going to remove this vulva from the bottom of the mushroom, and you can see underneath not only does it have a yellow cap, but it has a yellow stem, and then the gills are bright yellow underneath. Now it's really important that you do notice the bright yellow cap and the bright yellow gills. That's very, very important because some of the most poisonous mushrooms in the world are Amanitas in this genus, and the destroying angel or the death cap are a Amanita, but they do have white gills. Anyway, this will be the second mushroom that we're going to be adding to our mushroom soup. So now we have some slippery jacks and now a Caesar's Amanita. Hopefully we can find a few more of these. So we found a good one here. This is a porcini mushroom, a Boletus rupriceps. Right here, look at this. How pretty that mushroom is. Look at that. Look how beautiful that mushroom is. It just goes to show you, if you look hard enough, even in a crappy monsoon season, you can find some nice mushrooms. This is one of my, well, one of my very favorite mushrooms to find. The porcini, the king bolete. This is, I think, probably one of the tastiest mushrooms there is in the forest. My favorite being the chanterelle, probably second being this, the king bolete, the Boletus rupriceps. Sometimes they call them rupees or rubies because they have like a reddish color, ruby, but rupee as in rupriceps. Very, very cool. This is going to really add a lot of flavor to our mushroom soup, and hopefully I can find a couple more of these. Usually when there's one, there's several, so we'll keep looking around. Anyway, now that we're back in the car, I wanted to talk a little bit about this mushroom. I didn't talk about how to identify this mushroom. Really, this is a bolete mushroom. It has pores. It has a pore surface underneath as opposed to gills. You can see down there, very similar to the slippery jack, which we saw earlier. Although if you can see on this one, the pores are a lot denser, a lot tighter, compact, a lot more solid. And they're really just the ends of a bunch of little tubes in which they release their spores. And then this particular one, the Boletus rupriceps, has a brown to a kind of a ruby red color. Usually the stem on this mushroom is very stout as opposed to some mushrooms where it's very thin. Man, this makes me super happy. This is one of my favorite mushrooms to find out here in the woods. All right, I am back in the kitchen, and it's actually the next day. You just saw me out in the woods collecting all those beautiful wild mushrooms, and I have them all here because today I'm going to make some delicious wild mushroom soup. I have those slippery jacks, have a whole bunch of those. I have that one really pretty porcini mushroom. I have the one Caesar's Amanita, and I just happen to have a nice big handful of these oyster mushrooms, which I collected a couple days ago. So we're working with 4 really nice wild mushrooms here. I also have some shallots. This is a some nice French shallots, some butter, let's see, some garlic, have some heavy cream, salt and pepper, of course, and then some chicken stock, which is what we're going to use for our liquid. And the chicken stock, I'm going to really boost up that mushroom flavor by adding some of these dried porcini mushrooms that I collected last year. So that's a nice thing about collecting mushrooms every year, is that this year has been a slow season, but I have a nice stockpile of dried mushrooms that I can use this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a nice big handful of these dried porcini mushrooms to my chicken stock. And I'm going to get this on the stove, and I'm going to let this simmer while I'm getting the rest of my mise en place together. And that's just going to add that extra bit of mushroom flavor. Okay, while that's on the stove, we're going to get the rest of our mise en place together. Of course, I talked yesterday about these slippery jack mushrooms, and the reason why they're called slippery jack mushrooms is because they have this very sticky cap. And I did wash all these mushrooms. Yesterday they were really dry, so it wasn't sticky at all. I washed all these mushrooms, and of course the slippery jacks are a little bit slippery. So it's really important that you wash all of your wild mushrooms. They're always covered with lots of dirt and debris and pine needles and all that, especially the slippery jacks, because when they are wet, everything sticks to them. So it's important to wash your mushrooms. The thing is that you don't wash them too far in advance. You just want to wash them right before you're about to use them, and just do it really quickly. That way they don't absorb a bunch of water. Now, if you hear people that say don't wash your mushrooms, don't listen to those people. They don't know what they're talking about. So, I didn't mention that I'm going to do this sort of with a sort of Scandinavian flair to it. I'm going to add lots of fresh dill, and I'm actually going to use some this aquavit. There's actually a Swedish aquavit here, which has that nice flavor of caraway. So we're going to have all those sort of Swedish, sort of Scandinavian kind of flavors in this as well. So I think really goes well with the wild mushroom soup. So anyway, let's get started. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up these shallots because we want to get those started in our pan while we're preparing the rest of our mushrooms. We don't really need to be really precise with our chopping because we're going to be pureeing the soup in the end. Okay, now over at the stove here, we're going to start. Our pan is starting to get warm. We're going to put in some butter. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil because my pan's a little hot. Turn that down. Okay, and then I'm going to add my shallots. And I'm putting these in early because I want to kind of caramelize these up. And I have quite a bit of butter and oil in here because the mushrooms take quite a bit of butter and oil, and our soup is going to be really rich. So I turned the heat way down, so these are just going to slowly caramelize while we get the rest of our mushrooms and everything else together. we're going to slice up our mushrooms and get them ready for our soup. So for these slippery jacks, I'm going to remove most of the stem, and then I'm going to just slice them up just like this, just like that. Now, I mentioned out in the woods that some people like to remove this this outer layer of the top of the mushroom, because this is like in the sticky part, but I'm going to leave it on there today. If I were to pickle these mushrooms, I think I would definitely remove that layer from the cap. Look how pretty those mushrooms look. This is that one I did peel. Let's see, with our porcini, I'm just going to just separate the stem so I can slice it up a little easier. Once again, no bugs. Look how clean that is. And then our Caesars Amanita. All into our bowl. And then last but not least, our oyster mushrooms. Okay. Look at that. Nice big bowl of mushrooms. Now, this looks like a ton of mushrooms, but this is really going to shrink way down. And then, lastly, we're going to do our garlic. So this is just 2 sort of large cloves of garlic. All right, that looks good. We're just going to put this aside, and then we'll come back to this in a little bit. Now you can see our shallots are caramelizing nicely. This is exactly what we want. We want to get that nice caramelized flavor in there. And then now at this point I'm going to add our mushrooms. Like I said, this looks like a ton of mushrooms, but this is going to cook way down. I'm also going to add some salt to this. This is going to help our mushrooms kind of release their water in here. Now this is some porcini salt with dried porcinis and salt, sea salt, which I made, which I'm going to attach the video on how I made this at the end of this video in the description. But this is also going to add another level of mushroom flavor to this. You can see all of that butter and oil that we had in there just got absorbed by all those mushrooms. So our mushrooms have been sauteing here for about 5 or 6 minutes, and you can see how much it has really shrunken down. You know, our pot was completely filled when we put them in originally, and now it's down to probably the bottom third of the pot here. So now I'm going to add our garlic. We just want to cook the garlic a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit of flour to this, just to add a little bit of thickness. This is kind of going to act as a roux. I don't know, maybe that's 2 tablespoons of flour. Depending on how much mushrooms you have, We have a lot of mushroom here, so we're going to get a lot of body in the soup from the actual mushrooms. So we're not going to need a lot of flour in this. But if you have less mushrooms, you could add a little more flour, and that's going to add a little more body to your thickness to your soup. Okay, and now I'm going to add our aquavit. That smells amazing. It really has that caraway flavor and aroma, which I think really works well with these wild mushrooms. And we just want to just get this nice and stirred up. And then now I'm going to add our rough chop some of that fresh dill. I'm going to add some of that in there right now. I'm going to add some more fresh dill later so we can get the more fresh flavor, but I want this also to cook into the soup. Smells going on here are incredible. And now I'm going to add our stock. I'm actually straining out those dried mushrooms. Once again, if you want more body to your soup, you can pour them right in here, and they'll, like when you puree it, it'll add more body to it. But they've actually done their job here. I'm giving flavor to our stock, and I have plenty of mushrooms, so I'm going to strain them out. Okay, so we're just going to I'm going to turn my heat way down. I'm just going to let this simmer for a little while, everything to meld together, and then we're going to finish it up. I'm also going to add some fresh ground pepper. I like a lot of pepper in my soups, but you just do this to taste. I'm just going to let this simmer for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I'm going to come in, I'm going to puree it, we're going to add our cream, and then we'll be ready to eat. Our soup has been simmering for about 12 minutes right now, and you can see it's really started to reduce down. There's really started a thickness starting to be created with that flour, and then actually the slippery jack mushrooms have been actually adding a little bit of that thickness as well. So our next step is we're going to puree this. I'm going to be using this hand blender. So we're just going to do this right here. You can see how thick our soup has become, and that's okay because we're going to add, I'm going to turn this down, I'm just going to take it off the heat a little bit here, and then I'm going to add our heavy cream, and this is what's going to lighten it up, and it's also going to thin out our soup a little bit. Now, depending on how thick you like your soup, you can adjust that, I said, with the heavy cream, or you can add a little more stock to this. Now that consistency looks perfect for the way I like it, but you can make this as thin or as thick as you like it. And then at this point I'm going to add a little bit more of that fresh dill. This will bring in that real fresh flavor of the dill, and then we also had the dill that we cooked into the soup. Let's give it a little taste, see if we need to adjust the seasoning. A little bit more salt. This is once again that Porcini salt, and some more fresh ground black pepper. I think that's going to be perfect. I think I'm going to add, so I have one of these little dried porcinis, and I'm going to add a little bit of dill on there just for a garnish. But there it is, our wild mushroom soup with sort of a Scandinavian flair with the dill and the aquavit. All right, our wild mushroom soup. That looks so good. It smells so good. I can smell all those porcinis. Oh, it smells good. All right, can't wait to try this. Oh, that is so rich and decadent with all that butter and cream and all those mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms in here. First off, mostly you taste a lot of that that porcini. You know, I use the dried porcinis in the stock, so that really comes through really strongly. But there is kind of a more complex flavor of all the mushrooms combined, and the dill. I love the dill in the mushroom soup. It adds that nice bright kind of freshness that I really like, because the mushrooms are very have that very earthy kind of flavor. I think the texture is really nice. You can make, like I said before, you can make it as thin or as thick as you like it. This is the way I like it. It's a little bit thicker. Now the aquavit really adds that sort of caraway flavor. It's very subtle and in the background. If I had some whole caraway seeds, I would have toasted them in a pan, and I would have sprinkled them on top as a garnish as well. I think that would be really nice. It would add a nice little crunch and really carry through that caraway flavor. I just don't happen to have any caraway seeds up here right now. This is so good. It's perfect on this nice, what is it? It's September. It's starting to cool off. Up here in northern Arizona, it's cooled off quite a bit. Right now it's in the 70s during the day and probably in the 60s at night. So not too chilly yet, but this nice warm soup is really perfect for today. That is really amazing, and the flavor is so complex with all that combination of mushrooms that we found. And the fact that we can go out to the woods and we can find our own mushrooms is so cool, right? We go out, collect the mushrooms, and come home and make a really delicious soup like this is really amazing. I feel very fortunate to have that opportunity. Every time I go out in the woods, I just feel so fortunate to have this available to me. And Arlo too, of course, he enjoys it as well. Anyway, I hope you like this little mushroom soup adventure. If you like this video, please like, please subscribe. That always helps us a lot. And we will see you in the next one. All right, bye-bye. Now I know I mention it all the time, but I do have a bunch of playlists on my channel, and I do have one specifically for wild mushrooms and wild mushroom recipes. So if you like this sort of thing, please go to my channel main page and check out the Foraging Wild Mushrooms playlist, and there's a whole bunch of recipes on there of things that I found out in the woods and kind of fun ideas. So anyway, we'll see you next time.